half buyers, that's where they start. If you're wondering what to do with your website, that's where they start. You're all in the same continuum. So this is where greatness starts. Greatness starts 8 or 9 hours later, still looking to learn something, still striving, still trying to figure out how to be better than you were yesterday. So this all came to me 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago I turned 46. Thank you. That didn't give me a woohoo or whatever.
Great job, great job. Happy birthday.
Oh, no. Ooh, so I turned 46 on Wednesday. I celebrated with my children. Thursday morning I flew down to Miami, and Sunday I competed in a triathlon. Come on in. Don't get to that. So I thought about y'all because there are a lot of things in doing a triathlon that are similar to what you guys do. And I learned a lot of insight. In a triathlon, you get what you train for. The ocean does not to make favorites. The ocean clarifies everything. You get what you train for. And when you're out in the ocean swimming, it's like the market. The market moves, you can't control the ocean. All you can do is train for it. And ocean swimming is a lot different from pool swimming. And it's kind of like the market. Here you guys are reading these books. It's telling us what's going to happen, what's supposed to happen in this deal. But then you jump in the ocean, you jump into the market, and it's like, this ain't happening. So one of the things I noticed immediately when I got in the ocean is we swam a U-shape. Now they told us we were going to swim from an island in, which is different. The current isn't the same. So when I turned the U, that current hit me. Now I'm supposed to swim over here and then turn another U. Funny thing happens when the current hits the shore. Anyone want to guess what happens? It bounces back at you. And so I found myself swimming like this, or being carried. Here's where I'm supposed to be. Now I doubled my distance. I couldn't figure out, what do I say? How does that buoy keep getting farther away from me? Because I was going lateral. Anyone ever feel like that? Yeah. They're in there and they're watching a deal they're doing and they're like, how come I'm not getting closer to the end of this deal? The bank is calling me and telling me things. I feel like I'm farther away than when I started. But you have to train for that. That's part of your training. One of the things I did, and I remember someone asking me this when I was training, after I get through swimming the laps in the pool, I would just sit there and tread water for like 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending on whatever stage. Because I figured in my head, you know what, I got to adjust for the energy I'm going to need, with the current. But the current moving me, or in this case with you guys, the market moving you, the bank moving you, the settlement company moving you, the home inspector, y'all got more things to deal with than I did with the ocean. I just had the current. Y'all got like 18 different factors moving y'all around with your deal.
That's our current.
Pardon?
That's our current.
That's your current. That's your market. The easiest thing to do when you're in the ocean is to accept the current, because there's no fighting the market. You just have to cut through it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, if I hadn't trained for that amount of time, I would have gotten tired and worn out. And I watched people who got caught in the same current as I did get picked up by the boats. Get picked up by the boats. And I was swimming out there, and I thought of you guys when this happened. Because when you're swimming, it's very peaceful. There's no one but you in the ocean. Guy comes up and taps me on my head with like a little rod. He goes, you realize you haven't moved in 10 minutes.
That's scary.
Funny thing about the ocean, you're swimming, and if you're not swimming faster than the current, you're standing still. And about the time he said that, I was coming to that realization of, I don't think I'm going anywhere, which is a little frustrating. But one of the things that I didn't get worried about, because I had trained, I wasn't tired. So the training, I was frustrated, but I wasn't tired, and that's a big difference. some real estate agents get tired because they're not prepared for these things. Others who are experienced just get a little frustrated. How much you get frustrated depends on how long you've been doing it and your training. Does that make sense? But regardless of whatever your reaction to it is, you're still stuck in the ocean. The current's still hitting you, and you still have to figure out how you're going to cut through it. And so, in a triathlon, like I said, you get what you train for. The ocean clarifies everything. So the guy you thought was a great athlete might not be a great athlete. And it all shows up right there. The ocean, just like the market, demands respect. You have to respect the game you're playing. You have to prepare for it. You have to over-prepare for it. Because there is no stopping or coasting in the ocean. See, you can coast on a bike, but you can't coast in the ocean. It's either swimming and completing or you're done. You also begin to notice a lot of things when you're competing in a triathlon because it's this whole environment in and of itself. It's this whole culture in and of itself. The first is that winners come in all sizes. You can't predict who will win. You also will be surprised who's competing. So one of the things they do is they give you these body tattoos, and on my right calf, they put your age. I'm not sure why they do that, but everyone had their age tattooed right there. When I was walking in, my number was a little high. And I was kind of walking, I'm like, oh, number's a little high here. I don't know if I should be concerned. Then I started getting proud because I'm like, well, let's see what they can do when they double their age and see what they can do. And that's the same for you guys. You guys are here 9 hours later and 10 years later. The market has come through and swept away a whole lot of competition, but you're still here doing it. Yeah. And so you have two choices. You can be afraid or you can be proud. Because you're still there. You're still competing. The other thing is when you look at the other people around you, you begin to notice something. That the only thing in common is their attitude. I saw grandmothers. I saw young mothers. I remember one woman crossed over the finish line and grabbed her like 1-month-old baby or 3-month-old baby, very small baby, and finished the last 10 yards. And you're like, wow, okay. I saw, going to the swim, I saw a grandmother, her daughter, and her granddaughters, and their husbands, the granddaughter's husbands. So the grandmother was like 68, the daughters were whatever, late 40s, 50s, and then the granddaughters were like 28, 25, 26, and then the granddaughter's husbands. Funny thing about greatness, you attract people who want to be great. I found that real interesting, that her granddaughters had attracted men who wanted to run a triathlon. Just think about that. You attract who you are, no matter who you are, both good and bad. It also taught me another lesson when I think about business development, that it can be generational. That she had taught, this 68-year-old woman, had set a course for her family and had taught this. Just like when I think about Wanda Russell and the course she set with, where's Preston?
Preparing for a trip, you know.
Oh, see, I'll tell him I used him as an example. He wasn't even here to be used. But we set examples for our children to get involved. So you can't predict who you're going to run into. You also can't predict who's going to win. Some people train as a team. There are a lot of teams out there, but you compete individually. That's similar right here. Right here, we're all together as a team, but when you step out there, it's you individually doing what you do. It's just like stepping into the ocean. You come in as a group, but when you're in the ocean, you're alone. And so the team bolsters you, but at the end of the day, you have to individually compete. You have to set your own mark. You have to set your own pace. You have to figure out what it is you're going to do and how you're going to achieve it. And you have to move forward with that. The one thing I noticed prior to going down there is I ran into a lot of people. And their question was, well, why are you doing this? And it was hard for me to articulate why I was doing this, but this is what I noticed. Before I went, I ran into people who said, why are you doing this? And then they proceeded to tell me why they couldn't do this or wouldn't do this. And at a certain point, for almost a year of training, I just had to start tuning that stuff out. Why are you in real estate? Didn't that crash? People still buying and selling homes? Is there any money to be made? At a certain point, just like this, you just got to tune it out. They tell you their fears and their realities. You know, my left hip hurts, my back hurts, this, that, or the other. And you want to say, yeah, so does mine. The funny thing happens when you actually get to the event. There are all these people telling you that you can do it. All the people who do it, you don't say anything. They'll help you. You can do it. If you learn it's your first one, look, this is what you need to do. Don't worry about it. You can do it. It's the same as the atmosphere we have in here. And it taught me the year before that I have to tune out the people who tell me what I can't do and start tuning in and focusing on the people who can do it. I watched a documentary that inspired me on the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii, which is a 120-mile bike, 8-mile swim, and a 26-mile marathon. Then there was a segment that they did, and in the segment, they interviewed a guy who was 52 years old. How long have you been, 54, 56, I'm sorry. And they had a group, how long have you been doing? This is my 6th triathlon. And you're like, wow, he started at 50. I'm ahead of him, I'm okay. And then they interviewed, no, I'm 58, this is my 8th triathlon, 52 is my 2nd triathlon. You're like, okay, good, okay, I can do this. That taught me a lesson. You got to focus on the people who are doing things, because there are masses of people doing nothing. Then they interviewed a guy, he was 66, 64. This is my 4th triathlon. I'm like, this guy started at 60? What kind of drug was he on? 4 minutes later, I'm 76 years old. This is my 8th triathlon. Like, this guy started the Ironman triathlons at 68. And they had a whole group of people in their 70s that had started it at 70. And then they had an 84-year-old guy, 84 and an 86-year-old. Now, the 86-year-old had been doing it like 18 years. But the 84-year-old was like, yeah, this is like my 6th triathlon. And you're like, okay, that tells us that that tells me that we can be far greater than what we have allowed ourselves to think. Far greater. And when you're down there and you're around these people, you figure that out. I finally came up with an answer to the question almost a year later after starting training as to why I did it. My answer was, I wanted to be around people who were striving to be great, because I hoped that some of their greatness would rub off on me. That was the reason. And I found that that was indeed the case. One of the reasons we have Productivity Day, we bring you guys to team meetings, we bring in people like Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, is we want you to strive to be great. And we want to put you around people who are great, with the hopes that some of it will rub off on all of us. And so we keep looking at it that way. I talked about training. I talked about how you had to train for the unexpected. I didn't expect it to do this, the current to carry me out. I was hoping it'd carry me in. But you guys didn't expect there to be the banks and the REOs and foreclosures and all the million other things that are occurring. But you trained for the unexpected. About the 4th month of training, I realized something. I had a breakthrough. I realized that 85% of competing in a triathlon is mental. It's only about 10 to 15% physical. You really realize this when you arrive at the event and you look at the people who have the numbers on them. You're like, you all right, bro? You gonna make it? Until he's ahead of you. And you're like, he's like, you all right? You need help? You're like, ma'am, can I help you with your cane? Until she puts the cane down and starts practicing and warming up. You're like, okay. So you realize that 85% of it is attitude. Only a little bit of it is aptitude. That's the same thing with real estate. 85% of this game is attitude. All the stuff that I joked about the banks and the settlement companies, all that stuff's going to hit everybody. It hits everybody the same. It hits you the same as it hits the millionaire real estate agent. They have deals that fall through. They have banks that don't approve their deals. They have sorry clients. It hits everyone the same. But they work through it. They train for it. They presume it's a part of the process. You guys got it. We all have to do the same. The other thing is no one is good at all three sports. For those of you who don't do triathlons, it's biking, running, and swimming. So you got a world-class guy who did the Boston Marathon, New York Marathon, but he can't, he's sitting there, he's like, I can't swim for crap. And you got a guy who's a great biker, but he can't run for crap. My particular one, when I started this, I'm a recreational swimmer, meaning if you put me at a resort, and the guy with the barbecue grip reels it out on the other side of the pool and starts grilling burgers, I can swim across the pool, go get a burger. So the first time I swam, got in the pool, I swam a lap, okay, that's good, and I came back. So it's 25 yards down, 25 yards back. And then I decided whether or not I was going to die. There's a decision you got to make, just like real estate. This is harder than I remember, than it looked when I watched the guys in high school do it. Am I just going to die and quit right now while I'm ahead? So there's a decision, are you going to quit right now? But I stuck with it. And now I can swim a mile, no big deal. It's actually peaceful. But it was all mental. When I first got my spin cycle, first 2 minutes, I literally thought my heart was going to explode. In my body, I would just fall over. My children would find me dead in the bed the next day. Now I turn on the game. I can ride an hour, I can ride 2 hours. It's not a big deal. But it was all in the mindset. It all started that way. I hate running. Every sport I've ever played has been a sprint sport. Basketball, football, tennis. I have no idea why anyone would run farther than 100, 200 yards. After that, that's why God invented cars. I used to train. I remember training. I was running down the street, jogging, half jogging, and the bus went by. And I began subconsciously keeping track of the bus schedule. And I'd be like, dang, if I had 35 cents, I could just ride the bus home to the jungle. But this is what I'm thinking while I'm training. And about the 8th or 9th month, maybe 10th month, I developed this thing that I remember from ROTC, which is, it just came to me. I love running. And in my head, I said, I hate running. It said, as long as you say you hate running, you're going to hate it, and this is going to be a grind. You have to say you love running. So I said, dude, yes, it's some old psychological. So I said, well, what do I lose? I'm out here anyway. The bus has already gone by. I ain't got no change. Let me just try it. So I said, I love running in my head. And then it got a little louder, and it got a little louder. And what I noticed was, I still hated running, but it was easier to run. And so it's the same in real estate. You come in the morning, Pat's like, hey, or where's Timmy Toe? Timmy's like, hey, what about power hour? Hey! But this is how I see Timmy Toe. Timmy Toe was probably one of those kids that just popped up. Hey! The parents like, Timmy Toe, go back to bed for an hour. Then come. Hey, what about power hour? I hate power hour. And I hate you. And that's how running was for me. But just like in real estate, as long as you say, I hate doing it, you're not going to do it well. But the end result is you still got to do it.
Right.
So you might as well say, I love doing this. Even though I secretly hate it, I love it because I love the result. I love the result and I have to do it anyway. And so you have to come up with that attitude. You also, when you're doing that, hey, I'm going to go over here with Timmy Toe and do that. Why do you want to do that? I hate calling. Hate calling. you start engaging in a conversation about how much you hate it, it's just going to drag you down. One thing I noticed, if I take one thing away from the triathlon, is those who can't do something will convince you you can't do it.
Yes.
If you listen long enough, they will convince you, and they'll tell you every reason, and every reason's valid. You know, man, I hurt my hip in the Great War. Which war? World War I. There's a football accident. He never played football. You know, they will tell you. Those who can't will tell you you can't. Funny thing about it is once you got in what we call the corral, you had to have a little sticker or whatever, a little band to get in. Everyone inside there told you you could. I didn't run across one person who was competing that says you can't do this. I watch people. Hey, keep going, man. Keep going. That's a difference. So in the beginning, you have to tune them out. But as long as you tune them out, you'll get to a point where you're surrounded only by people who are telling you you can. Because they believe it for themselves, and they believe it for you. And they realize that anyone can complete the race. Those who aren't doing it will never understand the rationale and reasoning for those who do it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain because once you do it, it's kind of like, it's an unspoken thing. You just get it when you're surrounded by the people who get it and are doing it. You just get it. Even though it seems crazy, you still just get it. But it's hard to explain to someone who hasn't done it. While you're doing it, you have to keep your focus inside of yourself. You have to figure out what your goal is. It's a long-term race. You have to continue doing the long-term race, doing the things that will get you to that point. When you arrive there and you're finally there, you realize one thing that's really important before the race starts. There's a difference between talkers and there's a difference between talking and competing. The talkers, there's no room for talking inside the corral. The ocean doesn't accept talkers. The ocean only accepts people who are there to compete. And it respects everyone that respects it. But there's so many people that say, I'm never going to get in the ocean. I don't like swimming. I don't know how to swim. I have this, I have that. I have a buddy, he is this close to being an Olympic swimmer. And he learned it at like 32 because he couldn't swim. He said, one day I'm just going to go master. I'm just take lessons to learn this. And he's this close to doing it. He's been to the Swim Hall of Fame. I didn't know swimming had a Hall of Fame. In case you're wondering, it's down in Palm Beach. But he's that good, and I went out and he started to teach me. But he was at this level, and I was at this level. There were no burgers on the other side of the pool. And so some of the stuff he was telling me I found hard to absorb. Kind of like you guys. We throw all this stuff at you. And we're like, did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get it? And you're like, yeah, I maybe one of them. And so what I did is I said, let me figure out the one thing I can take from this. And I said, what's the one thing I can take from this? He said, you need to take a breath every time you do a stroke. Because if you don't take a breath every time you do a stroke, you're done. You run out of oxygen, you're done. They're going to pick you up. And so that's all I focused on. And that transformed my swimming. And so in all this stuff we've given you today and over the course of the last year, if it's too much, and as Mark mentioned, if it's so much stuff you're having trouble figuring out, focusing on one thing, figure out one basic fundamental thing that you know to be the truth and do that. And then when you get that down, then you can convert, then you can go on to the second thing. The winners in a triathlon are easy to identify, just like the winners in real estate are easy to identify. The winners get medals. You see if they walk around, you got a medal. If you're not wearing a medal, if you're not wearing a medal, you didn't win, or you didn't finish, and if you don't have tattoos on, you didn't compete. So it's fairly easy to identify who's doing it. The same is true in real estate. It's real easy to figure out who's doing it. The funny thing is those who are doing it, they just do it quietly. You never know where you're going to start. You never know where you are in the pack. There's no reason to be concerned about that. When I got in the water, it was 8:57 a.m. The first wave of people got in the water at 6:02. It was still dark. Now, I remember thinking, I wouldn't want to get in the water in the dark. But it doesn't matter when you get in the water, the oceans, you know, for me, I say, well, at least it's not dark. I can see where I'm going. The irony of it is, the people who first got in, they were the elite athletes. I don't know if they do this as a living. You know, they had like sponsors and stuff. Before I got in, about 8:50, they came like this. Hey, get off the sidewalk. We were standing ready to get in the water. Move over, move over. Like, why? Like the people who started are coming in. Like, coming in from what? The ocean? No, they're done. They're coming in from the ocean, the bite, and the run. We haven't even gotten in the water. They're like, move aside. And it's like, zing, zing. Same with real estate. Sometimes, for some of y'all who've been here a while, you're watching people come up in their captain, and you're watching people do things, and you're like, what am I even trying for? You know, these guys are already done. And at the end of the day, you figure out that you got to do it for yourself. That's what it is. That's real estate. That's training for a triathlon. So some of you all have been there. Sometimes you're frustrated. Sometimes you're wondering, why am I doing this? Sometimes you're like, maybe I should go back to working for Sears. But all of this comes to play when you're running a triathlon. Chiquita asked me a question under her breath, I think earlier, right when I started my presentation. She said, Jason, did you finish? I said, I'm going to get to it. I think I said, was it you? It was you. And Kathy. And I said, I'm going to get to that. I got swept out in the current. And what was supposed to, they give you 35 minutes to finish the race. And by the time I got back in, I never stopped swimming. It was like an hour and 15 minutes. Wow. And as I come up out of the water, which there are rocks, it's the other thing they don't tell you. That they need to tell you that. Back up. That's also like real estate. You think you're at the end of it, you're coming out, and there are these jagged rocks that no one bothered to tell you at the very end of this deal, like when you're sitting at the settlement table Monday, you know, that morning going to settlement. There are these jagged rocks that you're like, what the heck? And you're walking across these rocks out of the water. That struck me more than anything else. And I get up there, and I think this guy's coming like, hey, good job. He's like, I need to get your time chip. You're disqualified. You're too late.
Wow.
That's what I thought for a half a second. And I looked at him, I gave my time chip, and I kept moving. And funny thing is, this woman, who was his assistant, who was with him, like his counterpart, said, how do you feel? I said, I feel fine. I'm just frustrated. This guy, I can't finish. She's like, if nobody stops you, keep going. And this went like this, and don't tell about it. And I was like, okay. And I started jogging towards the bike. That's all you need. Okay, I will go towards the bike. Then I got to the bike corral. I got my bike out, got all my bike stuff on. I went over and they're like, we've closed this. People are coming in. You can't get out. And there was no getting around that. Now, at this juncture, my girlfriend, who hadn't seen me before, said, well, maybe I missed him, went over there, comes up and says, yeah, go, 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 go. In a 30-second span, I got this person saying you can't go anywhere. I just got crushed. This guy is like, give me your time chip. And she's like, go. He's like, not going to happen. And so I realized, this is where it ends. And at first I thought about feeling bad. I thought, wait a minute. A year ago, I couldn't swim. I could swim, but I couldn't swim what I can do now. A year ago, now I can swim 20, 30, 40 miles. Bike. I still love running. A year ago, I hated running. Now I love running. Still telling myself that lie. But then I reflected and I realized I moved here from Miami. You know, after humiliating defeat, the Miami Heat came back and won 2 back-to-back championships. And they credit the defeat with why they won the 2 championships. And I started thinking about other stories. You know, and something that I realized I now had to live something I had told my kids and I had told my people I used to coach, the kids I coached, which was, you can learn just as much from winning as you can from losing. Or losing as much as you can from winning, and oftentimes more. And so in that moment, I just said, okay, well, I'll do it again next year. Because I still have the same reasons for doing it. I've grown, but now I'm just going to train harder and take into account the ocean. The same is true for you guys. Some of you guys have been here for a few years, and you've watched some people where's Mike at? Oh, yeah. He's the elite athlete. 4 months later, before you even get in the pool, he's coming in and capped. And you're watching other people cap, and you're like, well, yeah, I've been here a couple of years, this, that, or the other. There's a reason you came here to begin with. To quit now without achieving your goal and enjoying all that success would be kind of a waste. And that's what I figured. So, come tomorrow, I get back in the pool again. Different stroke to accommodate for the ocean. We start the training again for the same triathlon in a year. That's what life is about. That's what business is about. That's how you develop. We develop our businesses by becoming better people. It's that simple. We develop our businesses so that our kids and grandkids can see the example we set. It's that simple. We develop it because that's who we are. We're great inside. We're striving to be great. And we're looking once again for the evidence that is great. The one thing that someone left me with was the winners aren't just the people who wear medals. It's anyone who made it inside the corral. Because in order to get in the corral, you had to have the courage to try. You had to sign up. You had to show up. You had to do some type of training. You had to make a commitment to better yourself. You had to set an example to people around you telling you that you can't do it or they can't. You had to be consistent. You had to find your way in the dark. You had to get up and run when it's raining. You had to keep running when you realized you had no bus fare. That's real estate. That's business. I was going to hit him in his head about 30 minutes ago. So, as we... That was lovely. He did all that. As you guys ponder your real estate career, and you think about all the stories you've heard in this productivity day and the other one, which I like to remember what Dennis Kimbrough said. I'm flat broke. You want me to do what? How am I going to do that and support my family?